We are all here for the same reason. We got that itty bitty spark inside of us that just yearns for the track, day in and day out. Whether that be on a dirt road or on a stretch of windy tarmac, these 7 cheap cars and an honorable mention, baby, will all satisfy your inner desires to get your adrenaline pumping. So not only have I made this list for a budget-minded racer who doesn't have thousands upon thousands of dollars to spend on a fully built race car, but all these cars are the best in the business and they're all under $15,000. Let's go! Yo, before we get started with today's video on cheap track cars, well, you know I've been wearing this Ideal shirt, and guess what? It's about to be dropped as our first merch drop ever. We're doing a 100K subscriber, thanks to all you guys. Merch drop for the first time ever, like I said, and guess what? You guys stay tuned because we're about to drop a couple of really unique limited edition items that may or may not look like this. But guys, stay tuned and enjoy the vid. Well, let's face it, the time of buying an E30 BMW has come and gone. I mean, you and your mom and probably your mom's friend want an E30 BMW. Probably not gonna happen. You're gonna have to pay an arm and a leg. So, you know what you can get is an E36, which is the ideal choice of grassroots racers all over the world. And here is why the E36 BMW is such a great cheap race car. You can race them in spec classes, they're super easy to modify, and their straight sixes are pretty robust and relatively powerful. Although they're now over 20 years old, they still look and act the part. And this is definitely my biased opinion, but I think that they look better than 95% of the new cars on the road today. Now, if you snag the M3 model, it'll do 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds with that 240 horsepower engine, carrying you to plenty of autocross championships for days to come. Or you can be a little weird and stage rally it, because that's cool too. So just how cheap can you get one of these 3 Series BMWs? Okay, so today we're doing it a little bit different. We're actually gonna be going through the price trends well, it's essentially the depreciation schedule of a car. And we're gonna go back 5 years for each one of them. This is the 1994 BMW 3 Series. We're gonna use a specific year of the E36. And you can pick one up 5 years ago for $4,400. And over the past 5 years, we can see that it's actually started to appreciate because, well, they're becoming more desirable. So nowadays, a decent one you can pick up for $5,300, and I think that they will continue to appreciate slightly over the next couple years. So now is the time to pick one up if you're gonna snag an E36 BMW, which I can't recommend enough. You know what are getting cheap? Nissan 350Zs are getting cheap, which is awesome because for very little cash, you can pick up a rear-wheel drive sports car that pushes out 287 ponies. And I think the engine sounds absolutely intoxicating. So get this, back in 2002, the 350Z was only a couple of horses shy of the legendary Porsche 911, the 996 to be exact. And what's great about the 350Z over the 996 911 is the fact that they're, well, relatively reliable and they're pretty cheap to find aftermarket parts. And the 911, which may or may not be on this list, costs 2.5 times as much as a Nissan 350Z. And not only are these ideal and cheap race cars, but they're also an extremely good drift car. So it's a good street car, sports car, and drift car. How much can you get one of these for? Now we're looking at the Nissan 350Z price trends depreciation schedule. And as you can see, it's more of a normalized depreciation where 5 years ago, you could pick one up for 11.5 grand. And over the last 5 years, they've continued to depreciate. Now, what's interesting about this is I actually think that it's kind of flatlined and they're either going to stay flatlined and be around 8,500 bucks for a decent example, or they're going to start appreciating because there's less stock or minimally modded ones out there. Also, more and more will be crashed because they are such a good drift car. And so supply and demand, less supply, more demand, price is gonna go up. So either flatlined or stay. So either flatlined or they might start appreciating over the next couple of years. Up next, we have the Subaru WRX. And the one that you're gonna wanna look for your next cheap race car is the GD chassis. Made from 2002 to 2007, you can take your pick between the Bug-Eye, Blob-Eye, or even the Hawkeye. Which one's your favorite? Mine's the Hawkeye. Now, why do these make such good race cars or rallycross cars? It's all-wheel drive, turbocharged, and has a ton of low-end grunt. All of this is the perfect recipe to be pulling you out of corners every single time. And trust me, you'll be having the time of your life. Many Evo guys I know actually like the Hawkeye model more than their Mitsubishi, but don't tell them I said that. Oh, and check out the evolution of the WRX if you want to know why. This is my personal favorite. So how are these doing in the market? Are they appreciating, depreciating? Let's find out. So for this depreciation schedule, we have both the Hawkeye, which is the 0607, and then we have the Bug Eye down here. And so as you can see, let's first start with the Hawkeye. It went way up in 2015, became pretty popular, almost peaked at $17,000, then started to come back down, and now it has started to flatline over the last few years, slightly depreciating. As you can see, actually, the Bug Eye was pretty flat, and then all of a sudden in 2016 became extremely popular, came back down, and as you can see, it is flatlined as well. So I think these cars are gonna stay at where they're at. They're a pretty good investment because you're not gonna lose money by having one. They're pretty sought after. But overall, you can expect to pay under 10 for a Bug Eye and then over 10 for a Hawkeye. And the Blob Eye is gonna be somewhere in the middle. The NSX might be one of Honda's greatest road cars ever built, but you know what else is? The Honda S2000. Not only does the S2000 do pretty much everything well, it is more than solid on the racetrack. It has direct steering, enough oomph to get you out of the turns, and straight up, it's a Honda. It's lawnmower reliable. In the right hands, which may or may not be your hands, this thing is like a skilled surgeon with a scalpel. And that legendary 9,000 RPM redline of the AP1, woo! And that masterpiece made it to one of the best transmissions ever in any car ever, makes this the ideal driver's car. And you and me, well, the secret's out. A lot of us enthusiasts know that this car is that good. So I wonder how prices are doing. So here we are, the Honda S2000. Now we got the AP1 and AP2. And as you can see, if you bought one 5 years ago, well, you'd be sitting pretty because this thing is actually worth more. And as of late, I've started to notice that the prices for both the AP1 and AP2 have started to, well, increase. And as you can see here, both the AP2, which you can see now is almost $30,000, which is above $15,000 for our cheap race cars. But the AP1 is still, you can find a bargain for around 15 grand. Of course, they're now getting close to 20, but they are absolutely incredible cars. And I think that they're going to continue to go up. So snag one while you can. What would a cheap race car list be without a Miata? I mean Miata. Yeah, we all knew it was gonna be on this list, but it is the perfect car for amateur racing. And that's why you see more than your fair share at any gymkhana or racing event out there. When you buy a Miata, you gotta remember that it's not all about speed, but it's about fun, comfort, and reliability of these street legal go-karts. It's as I say, Miata is always, and I mean always the answer. Now, when it comes to finding one, make sure to look for either an NA, NB, or NC model, which stand for the first, second, and third generations. So Miatas are pretty much cheap race cars that are street legal. Let's see how much they're going for on the used market. So, we got the NA, NB, and NC from 5 years ago. And as we cruise along over the past 5 years till today, you can actually see that the NAs are, well, they're more money than the NBs, just barely. But as you can see, the NCs have been depreciating, the NBs have pretty much been flatlined, and the NAs, well, cat's out of the bag. So I think all of them are great values. They're all ideal cars, but really depends on which one you want. And if you have an NA, you can let other NA owners that's the best one. But if you tell an NB or NC owner, catfight. Oh, it's too underpowered. It's slow. It needs a turbo. Yeah, you probably heard these things 1,000 times over when talking about the BRZ FRS GT86. Challenging the Miata as the best driver's car, the BRZ is some of the most fun you'll ever have in the driver's seat. And you wanna know why? Because just like the Miata, it's slow. So that's why it's on this list of 5 slow cars that your friends think are fast. You should definitely go check that out right meow. Okay, take a second and hear me out. When you are in a BRZ, you can floor it around everywhere you go. Rail on it till redline without needing to worry about doubling the speed limit before you blink. The best part about underpowered cars is the fact that you can drive them at the very limit comfortably. And when it comes to cornering, this car seems to defy logic. I bet you didn't know that it has a lower center of gravity than the new Toyota Supra. Just take one of these to the track and you'll see exactly what I mean. Okay, so they're a ball of fun, but how much can you pick one up for? Well, here's the Subaru BRZ price trends, and well, that is pretty much a slippery slope of depreciation right here. I mean, they started out at roughly 25 grand, and over the past 5 years, you can see that now they're at, well, around 16 grand. You can pick up a nice example. So I think they're gonna continue to depreciate. I mean, people know that they're slow, and that's one of the main reasons why people aren't buying them up in heaps, but they also are an incredibly nimble, fun car to drive. So yeah, I think they're gonna still go down slightly, but not a bad, cheap sports car slash race car. Now, before we get to the last car on this list, and the one that we've all been waiting for, let's get into the other car that we've all been waiting for, and that honorable mention, baby. Ford took a car that was just an econo box and sprinkled a little bit of their magic on it to make it an awesome, really competent sports car slash race car. And they called it the Ford Fiesta ST. With just a roll cage and a couple of suspension mods, you can literally turn these things into one of the most capable rally cars ever. Worldwide, teams use these cars for competition. And well, it's a Ford, so parts are easily available. And quite honestly, it is such a good platform that I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, the World Rallycross uses the Fiesta. I mean, just check out this R5 Fiesta rally car. I may have splurged in my pants a little bit. However, if you can't get over the fact it looks like a handheld vacuum cleaner, this car is definitely one hell of a bargain. Let's check out how much you can snag one for. Now, since there's no price trends data on the Ford Fiesta ST, just the Ford Fiesta, we're just gonna look at Car Gurus and check out some of the cars that they have for sale. And you can check out that like a 14 ST you could pick up for under 12 grand, a 17 for under 17. So over the 3 years, just using basic math, 17 to 12, that's 5 grand in depreciation over the course of a few years. So 1,000 to 1,500 bucks a year of depreciation overall to own that Ford Fiesta ST. Now, I think they're probably bottoming out in depreciation. The main reason why is they stopped selling them, and so they're gonna become more rare. Again, supply and demand. Boom, just like that. So right now is a great time to snag a Ford Fiesta ST, and I mean, they're just little balls of fun. Yeah. Before you say you don't like fried eggs, just remember, the headlights on the 996 really aren't that bad. And looks aren't everything, at least that's what my mom tells me. Now, we can all agree that the 996 generation 911 maybe isn't the most loved one out there, but looks don't matter when you're racing. Because guess what? It still is a Porsche, which means you'll be right at home when you're just tearing up those apexes. And now that I've bought one, I know firsthand that they will reliably do this for hours on end. And that driving experience is like no other. Being the first water-cooled Porsche, this thing is truly a bargain, an ideal bargain, I might add. And if you want to learn how to buy a 911 or any of the other cars on this list, go check out the Ideal Car Strategies. Personally, I know that they're great cars. I'm just hoping that people continue to hate these cars so that they stay affordable for you and me and your mom. Because once people start to realize the true value of these cars, it's game over. Okay, guys, now the Porsche 911, the 996 specifically, is the cheapest 911 out there. And although you can see over the last 5 years, if we were to draw a line here, it is still depreciating. You can pick some of these up for under $15,000. A good example of a 996 is going to run you around 20, but I have a feeling that these are going to start appreciating over the next 5 years as we see manual transmissions become more hard to find, and just overall Porsche 911s, people start to realize that they are such good cars. These are extremely undervalued Porsche 911s. Now, since I can tell that you're itching to climb into something with an amazing driving experience, check out these 5 fun daily drivers that are surprisingly cheap, or check out what YouTube recommends you watch next. Oh, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe. But either way, you can't lose, and as always, keep living that ideal lifestyle.